Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lundgren.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Friday News Show. My name is Billy Rankin, joined by usual actual lunchtime guest, isn't it? A Friday lunchtime guest. Bob, I'll come to you first, mate. You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. It's nice to see the old band back together again, Billy, to be fair. So yeah, looking forward to today.
That's what I meant to say, actually, because it feels like the original, the OG lineup of it. We've had some new faces joining the new show on a Friday, which is good, but it's nice to have the original cast back. Cammy, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, looking forward to getting back to Ibrox tomorrow, said nobody. But yes, it's been an interesting international break, but real football and what have you. And there's been obviously plenty to talk about, and we'll chew the fat over that in the next hour. But yeah, doing good, as I said to you last day before a week's leave from work. So I'm looking forward to getting this done and then getting finished early bells this afternoon.
Don't say that a live show. Your bosses might be watching, mate. We'll do this because, I mean, it has been, even though it's an international week, it has been eventful in the world of the Rangers. So we'll maybe do it chronologically from round about last Friday, Saturday, Cammy. Obviously, all the kind of jungle drums were that Steven Gerrard was going to be returning as manager. I was fully on board. Not that I think he, is the best football manager in the world. I just thought he was the type of person, really the only person I could think of that would unite us all back together again as a club as a whole with the fans.
This is really the first opportunity I've had to really speak properly about it. I echo your thoughts. Gerrard was the popular fans' choice, I would say. The charisma, the personality, all that sort of stuff. The feel good would have sort of came back, but I've got huge moans and issues with regard to the way that we've went about this process since Russell Martin was sacked. But yeah, for a couple of days it was getting closer. All the jungle drums were, it's going to be Steven Gerrard, and then I think I said on something else that, what was it they said? A colleague of mine said to me when I left work on Friday, Rangers can't spoil your weekend because they're not playing. So they were doing okay, and then 9 o'clock on Saturday night, Chris Jack and all the usual suspects break the news, and then the timing issue and what have you. I mean, I think there's probably there's a lot more to the story that won't actually make the public domain, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was very, very surprising and disappointing. So it just shows you that, see, until the person is standing with a scarf above their head, never believe anything's close.
That's the thing. I do believe that, Bob. We need to wait for the pictures to be released. Even the manager sitting at a desk, with a pen and the fake contract sitting in front of him, pretending to sign it. I was gutted, to be fair. Like the timing of it as well on a Saturday night. I woke up like halfway through the night, and it was like almost like when we get beat, I don't tend to sleep too well. But it was that kind of feeling, like really wanted him to become as the manager. What was your thoughts on him? Were you behind him?
Yeah, I think as we kind of said on last week's news show, Billy, that I think everything was gearing up to seeing him, with the scarf pick towards some point this week. But as Cammy said, your weekend was absolutely ruined with the update from Chris Jack saying that it wasn't going to go through, and obviously then came everything that's happened in the last week or so with Kevin Muscat. So to me, it just you were so hyped because again there was such a wave of positivity because of, again, past experiences with Gerrard, the fact that he won his 55, the character, the mentality, the standards that he brought to the club and maintained within the club during that period. The fact that, again, I don't think many other folk have mentioned it, but the links with Walter as well, how he lent on Walter Smith's experience when he first came into the job, right up until obviously the time of Walter's passing as well. And I think that holds some kind of sentimental value towards the fans as well. And I think seeing that ripped away last weekend, I think probably just, again, it was a death, kind of death by 1,000 cuts. We've already been extremely disappointed with this season, and you thought just when you were maybe hitting the wave to come back into some sort of positivity, it was taken away again.
Cammy, you mentioned that we'll not hear what went wrong with the deal. There's no doubt it was going to be on. I mean, all the Heart and Hand Rangers review said on the Friday everything was looking good. It really came out the blue for me, especially the timing of it. What do you suspect happened?
I find it hard to believe that Steven Gerrard, conversations have obviously happened with Gerrard prior to him coming to London. Mm-hmm. So what has happened I think clearly the issue appears to be that I think it's to do with the control aspect of it. But again, the model, he's worked under a director of football previously with Mark Allen and I'm sure he worked with Ross Wilson. There's obviously more layers to that now within the club, heads of recruitment, all that sort of situation. So I wonder if that was something that was an issue within day one and day two, but everything else was fine. And it was just a case of Gerrard no thinking that he was going to have enough say with regard to bringing players in. Basically, I don't. The timing aspect of it, I just think it's came out, obviously Danny Rohl's came out, I think, with a similar line with regard to that. And it's a bit of a head scratcher, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people put two and two together and just automatically think Kevin Thelwell is the common denominator and he is the problem. I don't think it would have got to the Saturday if that was a problem. So sorry if the dog's in the background. Always happens, comedy timing. But I think that Gerrard wanted more control than he was going to be given, to be honest.
Bob, I'll ask you your opinion on what you think happened as well, but just on Cammy's last point, did he have the right to come in and demand, basically restructuring the hierarchy of the club just to get him back in?
I think that was one of the difficult things that I certainly found hard to swallow, Billy, that, having left us in such a positive position at that time in the season, to go and not have, in all honesty, he's failed at his other two clubs. Aston Villa, he did okay with, never made any great progress with them. Went to Saudi, and again, Al Ettifaq aren't one of the big teams over there. So again, was kind of mid-table, wasn't tearing up roots with any kind of great performances or any kind of great media outline or outlay. So to come back or to be involved in the discussions again and make certain, for lack of a better word, demands of the club to say, if I get the job, I want this and this in place, you're then kind of bending to the will of the manager rather than to the board. And obviously we've got a new board in place. I know it's been mentioned in various outlets that he's been impressed with the representatives of the club, and that was why they've said it, they would be open to returning if the timing was right. And I know that obviously that timing word has been used to great effect in the last 7 to 10 days, but I don't think he was really in a position to demand anything other than based on what he'd done previously. And even then, as you said, he's worked with Mark Allen, he's worked with Ross Wilson. So unless he has heard through the grapevine of things, of red flags raised against Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, which ultimately caused him to withdraw from the discussions, we'll never know until he comes out and says otherwise. And even then, we'll know there's always three sides to a story. So we've not been given too much in terms of leaks, but yeah, I just don't think it would have been great for him to come in and the club kind of bend to his will, as much as we can all admit that we're desperate for someone to come in to be successful. I just don't think it would have left us in a great position if he had come in and then potentially left in 18 months' time for a better job. So yeah, it's a strange one overall, but to me, I don't think he should have been coming in making demands, considering he's still currently out of work. As much as the punditry, career will obviously be giving him some keeping his bank balance topped up.
Cammy, you wanted to come in there?
I totally agree with what Bob's saying. I don't think he was in a position to put any demands. Somebody said to me about obviously there's an issue with Kevin Thelwell, replace him with Davy Weir, for example. The structure of the football club is the structure of the football club. That's the way that I think the review that took place that Patrick Stewart started a year ago. This is the way that modern football clubs operate, regardless of who the manager is. It's about having the right people in the positions across the various departments that is the issue. This is going to be the structure of the football club moving forward. So I don't know where Steven Gerrard, he said on his Rio Ferdinand podcast that he wants to take opportunities. I don't think he's going to go to a football club where he's going to have overall control. Every club operates in pretty much the way that we're now going. So I don't think, as much as it was disappointing, I don't think it's 1992 and Steven Gerrard is going to be doing what managers back then were. Walter Smith dealing with David Murray sort of approach. That's just not the way that it's done now. So as much as I've got a lot of time for Gerrard, and I did laugh at the fact that he said he leaves his options open for the future, as if, it's not like he's got a massive CV with regard to success that's going to mean that we're going to desperately get Steven Gerrard back at some point in the future. Remember him positively, but I think a bit of an ego. I think a lot of the information, to be honest with you, that was being leaked out, I think it was probably coming for his side. I think a lot of it was coming down south, and it was feeding its way up here. He's got a lot of contacts as well, so I don't put all the blame with regard to the club as to the way that the narrative built over the latter part of last week.
There's a few things that you have said. I'm trying to remember the few things I was thinking of there. First things first, when it comes to Gerrard, there is just, we've said this with Martin. Russell Martin didn't get the club. Maybe some of the guys in the boardroom at the moment don't get what it is to be Rangers. Steven Gerrard did. And as well as not having all the experience of being, 20 years coaching, he came to us and day one came in, looked around the place and improved things from the cafeteria, from the training centre, from the stadium, got things to a modern standard, which still carries on to today. I just think if he'd come back in, despite not being in a job, but Bob, you were saying there, despite not having been successful anywhere else, that type of guy just fits with what Rangers are. So that was my first thing. Cammy, if I come to you on the two other things, I don't buy that it's anything to do with Thelwell, because as you say, this would have been discussed before coming over. And there was another thing I read. Someone don't say, I'm not saying this is true, but someone claimed that they'd spoken to Beale and Beale had said Gerrard only came over as a courtesy. I think that's rubbish as well. I think we were very close to appointing them. I just want to know what this something is that prevented it going through.
I think we all do, to be honest with you, but I think that when the appointment is made, the club will talk about a thorough recruitment process and all politicians speak in that sort of situation. But I don't believe a lot of what's been said. Steven Gerrard, for me, the structure, he spoke to us in the summer. So what brought him? What was the barrier in the summer that changed in October? So what changed between June and October to bring him back to the table conversations that happen prior to I'm travelling over from Bahrain to London to have the conversations. It's this missing part, because Steven Gerrard's a very clever guy. He's got good people, good agents round about him that have been with him for a long period of time. He's not coming over just for... He didn't fancy a night at the theatre in London on Friday and Saturday night. He was coming over with probably the expectation that he wouldn't be going back to Bahrain. He would be coming straight. He would be coming up to Glasgow, and he'd be taking training on Monday or Tuesday. So I just don't. I think they'll keep it very vague, unless Gerrard speaks to another podcast or whatever. But I think it'll be very general. I don't think we'll ever find out the full he said, she said sort of situation, unfortunately.
Bob, if it does, again, if we don't find out, we don't find out. But if it does turn out to be something in his personal life, for instance, I think it would be good for the fans, because Thelwell is under a lot of pressure from the fans. He's not very popular, and he is getting the blame for this. See, if it isn't anything to do with him, the club would be doing well to let that be known to the fans, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, the pressure that Thelwell and Stewart have been under, more scrutiny over the last couple of weeks than they have been, since the season started. It would certainly help relieve them and maybe take the foot off their neck for even a short time. Again, I noticed one of the comments there that I put up was that, maybe try and give Thelwell to the end of the season to judge him. But based on the early signs, it's not looking great. The appointments that he's made, the signings that have been made, haven't shown the promise that we were hoped, or that we were told or promised in the summer when they were brought in. Again, I understand we're still very early into the league season. But yeah, I just think it's just been difficult as Rangers fans over the last 2 weeks to have not made a swift appointment, considering we are, say, used to, again, making things very quick for ourselves in terms of appointments. And I think that's something that's obviously added to the frustration and feeling around the club and the support. So yeah, it's a tough one at the moment, Billy, but I'm kind of hoping that we're nearing the end of we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully in the next few days.
This is kind of out of sync, Cammy, with the timeline, but Bob does make a point about it being 2 weeks without an appointment. I just think that the fans could have told you on day one what was going to happen with Russell Martin. The fans did tell them on day one what was going to happen, but we got behind them for as much as we could. He was probably there double the amount of time he really deserved to be. What worries me is that they weren't seeking out or making contingency plans. I do worry that if it wasn't for the shenanigans outside Falkirk Stadium, Martin would still be there. They weren't really wanting to get rid of him.
Well, you wonder if we'd managed to hang on and get 3 points that day. What would have happened? Was Russell Martin going to be binned regardless of the result that day? I'm not so sure, to be perfectly honest with you. I feared on the Sunday night that we'd be in this position. Well, that they weren't ready to press the button with regard to a cohesive plan to actually get a manager in. Patrick Stewart and the guys met with the fan advisory board. I had noticed minutes from that recently where they'd spoke about succession planning being part of a normal business and all that sort of stuff. As I say again, very, very politician speak, but actions, and I've said this on this podcast many times, actions speak louder than words. And for me, I don't think it looks like we've had any succession planning in place. Otherwise, everything, if Steven Gerrard was the number one candidate, everything would have been resolved, because you would have done the conversations would have happened whilst Russell Martin remained in place with his representatives, so that when he was coming over, it was just about dotting the I and crossing the T's, and finalising it. So it doesn't look good on Kevin Thelwell, doesn't look good on Patrick Stewart. I think the owners have got more involved with regard to this part of it. So I think a lot of what's gone before is probably they've given the control to the local executives, and the local executives have pretty much failed in all aspects since they started, to be honest.
Bob, we'll move on because that's over 20 minutes talking about a manager that we're not appointing. We also had been speaking to apparently a few others, but Danny Rohl obviously was the name last weekend. It was also getting interviewed. That seemed to cause an awful lot of anger online that we were even talking to someone else and weren't just going down the road of Gerrard. But it does show you that was probably a good idea to be talking to other candidates. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well, led to believe, had been spoken to. But staying on Rohl, I think if they had wanted to continue their plan for what the manager's position or the head coach position, he is the guy they should have went for. You know, I'm not saying I agree with that, but what does worry me is that they maybe are paying too much attention to online forums and Twitter feeds and panicked with that and suddenly kind of pulled back from Danny Rohl. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, I think. And again, I haven't really looked into him very much, Billy, but from what I've seen kind of online over the last few weeks, obviously since Russell Martin was, more than likely going to be relieved of his duties, the fact that he's had quite a distinguished coaching career in Germany with Bayern Munich, to then go to Sheffield Wednesday and have relative success with them in terms of keeping them in the division and making them a kind of mid-table championship team, has obviously done well, obviously under tough circumstances, obviously from which we've benefited in the summer, with young Gassama coming in.
That, yeah.
And I think that would have been good to see if he had come in, if Gassama would have improved more or shown more with a coach that he was already familiar with. I think that would have been a good thing to see. I don't think that's really been talked about in many of the pods, if any at all. But so that to me would have been interesting. I know comments were made from Josh Windass about his time at Sheffield Wednesday under Danny Rohl, and he said he was an extremely good coach and extremely good manager. So again, anything that's come out from a Rangers perspective towards him seemed positive. I agree with you, Billy. I think it would have made sense for him to be the next manager based on the criteria that the owners had kind of outlined in the summer and when the takeover was completed about what they wanted to see moving forward and at the club. Again, it's come out to say that Danny Rohl, the timing wasn't right. There was obviously rumours saying that he was going to be kind of second choice for the second time. After Russell Martin was appointed in the summer, and he was very close to taking over in the summer, allegedly. So again, it may be something that they go back to in the future. Hopefully, after we've had a sustained period of success under one manager, and not as Cammy and me seem to have done over the last and yourself over the last 18 months. It's a kind of rinse and repeat of, we get to the October-November break and we're already talking about another managerial replacement at the club. So yeah, it seems, I think maybe he could potentially be lined up for a bigger job. Maybe that's why he turned down the role. No pun intended, but I think he would have been a good choice. I think it would have been exciting to see. I think he may have been a bit more adventurous than Russell Martin was in his time at the club. So yeah, again, I never know. Maybe in a alternate universe, he's come in and he's got his winning again, but we'll never know. But again, it may be an option that we'll look at down the line, hopefully after a period of success at the club.
Cammy, with Rohl, I think if he had been the choice in the summer, we maybe would be sitting in a different circumstance just now. My worry with him coming in at this point in time is he's got no time to implement anything. We really need to. If he'd been in for this weekend, if we didn't win, that would be just happening again in a couple of weeks, because he wouldn't get any patience for the fans.
100%. I think he's following a manager, head coach that nobody really wanted and was a huge failure across the 3 months. I think to recruitment, which I tend to agree with, and focusing on down south. So I think the connection with regard to him and Sheffield Wednesday, Russell Martin, Southampton, a lot of people look at the comparables with regard to Championship, what recruitment you're going to get off the back of it. So, but I think what it does show is Rangers have very quickly, and they've not communicated anything, because they haven't communicated at all over the last 2 weeks, to be honest with you. Is the style, is the head coach, is everything still in, is this still the plan? Is this still the way we want to play football? So on and so forth. Because it seems quite scattergun to me, different styles. Gerrard would have been a different style to Danny Rohl. Danny Rohl, probably a different style to Kevin Muscat. Kevin Muscat, different style to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Just a wee bit, all over the place to me. I just don't think there's enough of a sort of cohesive plan, which has brought us to where we are now.
I do worry that, Cammy, that they're so spooked by the fans' reaction. I don't think they expected or understood that fans would be so angry with them personally as owners of the club. So that is that seems to be the when you go.
See, the other thing is, right, I joked many times on social media about there's a great number of Rangers fans would want the official account to actually put 3 choices and basically the fans decide. So, I mean, it's very tongue-in-cheek, but they've taken, in my opinion, I think they've fed information out with regard to certain people, and in the potential appointment of Kevin Muscat, it's essentially next to Steven Gerrard, the popular fans vote. So I think, and the club won't say this, but I think they're taking the easy decision with regard to somebody who a huge part of the fan base is reasonably happy with, apart from obviously everybody that's watching Shanghai Port play this morning, which I'll judge Kevin Muscat once he's Rangers manager, standing at the side of the park.
Cammy, I watched the first half before coming on here. All I can say is wild. I don't know what it's exciting, but it's a wild way to play football. I mean, I think both teams seem to play the same kind of way, so I don't think it's necessarily something wrong with his setup. It does seem to be a bit like the Belgian football, is kind of back and forth, so up front all the time, and 100 miles an hour. But coming back to you, Bob, before we talk about Kevin Muscat in particular, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I mentioned, I loved him as a player. He was like the quintessential super sub. As a manager, I don't know a lot about him, but has been any other names that you've seen this week that were actually interesting to you?
Not really. I think they've probably all kind of been covered in terms of, Solskjaer would have been an interesting appointment, I think. I know it wasn't really as widely reported in the media as Danny Rohl and Gerrard and obviously Muscat now, but I certainly, just to touch on him for a moment, Billy, I think it would have been a decent appointment. Again, he did well at Man United when he came in. Mulder, I know he didn't really have a great time at Cardiff when he was there. I think he's now been linked to the Sweden job after they've sacked John Dahl Tomasson. So again, it was a Besiktas as well, I think it was Besiktas. So again, he's been across various clubs at Europe. Experience of European football. Obviously, was a great player in his day. Obviously, seems to come across as a nice guy as well. But at this moment in time, I'm not sure if a nice guy is what we need. Again, just as we're probably going to come in to touch on Muscat, I think as much as everyone says Muscat's a kind of nice guy off the park, we certainly know what he's like on the park from his time at the club, and obviously prior to that down in English football, he's got a certain. I think the probably term is cojones. He's got some cojones on him. I don't know if Solskjaer would have had something similar. if he'd been appointed. So yeah, it was an interesting one, but there wasn't really anyone else that came across my radar that hasn't already been mentioned, Billy. So it seems as if they kind of had narrowed down their short list. I know there was a couple of guys or a couple of folks in the comments mentioning about Stephen Robinson, and I know we had discussions on Derek McInnes previously, but again, if it had been a local choice in terms of a Scottish football manager at the moment, I probably would have said Robinson again, just because even just for a year to allow us to settle and maybe get some consistency. I think he's done extremely well at Motherwell and St Mirren. We know to our detriment how well St Mirren can play. They always seem to be a bogey team in Motherwell. When he was at Motherwell, they were always a bogey team for us. So I think it would have been somebody that would have come in. Again, speculation, could have had Stephen Davis as a backroom member of the backroom staff, both Northern Irish players and previously. So yeah, that would have been maybe the only one I maybe would have liked to have seen maybe a bit more reported on. But I'm certainly not unhappy with the choices or the choice that we're looking to make at the moment.
I think for me, he would need to go to a team that maybe had more attacking. I don't know, not prowess, you know what I mean? But say like a Hearts or a Hibs that are expected to go on the attack more than these teams he's been at. I'd like to see what his system is when he's got that kind of pressure, rather than just setting up a team to, do what St Mirren do to us the other week there. Cammy, just if you want to touch on Derek McInnes, all I was going to say is I think he would be mad to leave where he is currently to come to us. So we're led to believe there's been no discussions or approaches. I'm sure there's maybe been back channels spoken to, but if I was him, I wouldn't come to us at the moment with how well he's doing at Hearts.
I think Derek McInnes' time was maybe a couple of appointments ago, to be honest, as Rangers manager. I think when he was at Kilmarnock, after he had left Aberdeen, I think he was mooted in the past. He obviously had his opportunity previously. Regardless of what he's doing at Hearts, I think he's in quite a comfortable position there. Whether he wants to be the whether he wants to be the manager or not, he might have similar issues with regard to the control aspect of it. I don't know how it operates through at Hearts with regard to their recruitment. I know that they've got the analytics via Tony Bloom and what have you. Is Derek McInnes just getting players landed on his lap? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But I just think that Derek McInnes' ship has sailed. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he's done a good job pretty much across everywhere that he's been. Well known that he's a Rangers man, or has been a Rangers man, as he would probably put it. But we all know where his allegiances lie. But I think he's doing a good job at Hearts, and I think they've got a real opportunity this season to be in the top two. I don't think it's out with the bounds of possibility. That I think you've got Rangers and Celtic probably at their weakest for a long period of time, and we'll see if Hearts can maintain the positive start to the season. But we've been here before with regard to teams having good starts. Aberdeen flew at the traps and then fell off a cliff. So it could quite easily happen with Hearts. But McInnes is a good coach. Robinson, I think, like you say, I would want him to try elsewhere. St Mirren and Motherwell, very organised, very physical, would get football stopped for me. I don't really want to watch that, to be honest, but decent enough guy and what have you, and I'll give him kudos to the jobs that he's done. But I didn't think, to be honest, the names that have been linked, I don't think there was an outstanding candidate available. We obviously put our eggs out all into the Gerrard basket, and then we've scrambled a wee bit since then. From here to, the club will tell you that it's been planned and it's been this and it's been that and it's been the next thing. But from the outside looking in, it's been quite shambolic and quite scattergun.
Right, well, let's talk about the guy that we expect to take over as manager. Certainly from updates we're seeing online, from we're not in the know type ones, but other accounts like David Edgar Heart and Hand says that things are pretty much smoothed out. But we were hearing this last week with Stephen Gerrard. Cammy, Kevin Muscat, known to us for a season as a player, treble winning player. played more games than I actually remember when I look back on it. As a managerial appointment, he's won leagues, he's won cups. Studied under Ange Postecoglou, whose style of play for Celtic, at least over those couple of seasons, seemed to do very well here. He's going to obviously need to have the players to play that side of things. Also ticks other boxes for me is he's very much in the kind of mould of your Steven Gerrard. He is the kind of guy that will pull the fans together, I think, and he very much is I mean, the fans wanted Gerrard. I think that's for definite. 99% did. But I think he's a very close second to Steven Gerrard. On the appointment, if it goes ahead, what's your thoughts on Kevin Muscat?
Yeah, I echo your thoughts there. I think it's been spoken that Neil McCann's going to come in as his local coach. McCann's somebody that I think will be very good from having current knowledge of Rangers and current knowledge of Scottish football and what's been going on. McCann was obviously in with Barry at the back end of last season. So I think he'll wear a suit, which will probably please a sizable number of the supporters with regard to that. I think he'll look smart standing at the side of the pitch. I say that in jest, obviously, but it will be something that I think he will definitely do. He's a winner. And I think he'll no suffer fools gladly, to be honest with you. And I think the dressing room needs a character. I don't think he's quite as ambassadorial, statesman-like as Gerrard. We all want, as I've said before, we all want Walter Smith type leader, statesman of the football club. But I think he's cojones. I think Bob had said. I think he's got a bit about him. And I think he's not won at a particularly high level, but he's won, and I think that's important. He knows what it's like to win. I'm laughing at the comment wearing a suit doesn't guarantee wins. I don't think anybody said wearing a suit guarantees wins. I was just it was very tongue in cheek with regard to obviously a lot of people didn't like Russell Martin and disliked him even more because he dressed like he was going for a night out, to be honest with you. But I think I just hope he gets over the line with regard to the next couple of days. I think they're obviously playing at the moment. I think we've got a game tomorrow. I think that'll be holding any sort of formal announcement up. I'm interested to see who else he brings in around him. I'm interested to see who Neil McCann has to work with over the next few weeks. If, as it appears correct, he's not going to be here for 3 or 4 weeks, which is another conversation and something I think you're probably going to ask us about, Billy.
I will do it, Bob. I'm going to have to ask you to take over. I've had a tradesman turn up a good hour earlier than I was expecting. I'll be back in 5 minutes, so okay. So if you can take over a second.
Yeah, of course, no problem. That's fine. Yeah, Cammy, I think it'll be an interesting one. I think it looks as if, any deal that has been agreed would probably be kept until after each game, which, as you said, probably half the folk that are watching this have either watched the first half or are going to go and check the second half out whenever you go and find it. But yeah, I think it would be good to have kind of Neil McCann, Scottish coaches as part of his setup. I think that was, again, some of the comments were mentioned about the Russell Martin backroom staff. He didn't really have anyone there that had been part of the club previously, and he himself obviously was part of the club at a very low moment for us. So yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how the backroom set up. He compels that. Again, Neil McCann, I thought last season was really good with Billy Dodds as part of the backroom team. Obviously when Barry was interim manager. So again, I think maybe just coming to the comment that Shona made, I know that there's been some rumours around the alleged contract that he's been offered. I'm hoping that it's nowhere near that. I think they were mentioning 50, 60k a week, which I thought was quite high for a manager. But then again, is that going to compensate for the contract that he's got in Asia at the moment? Who's to know? But if it is rumoured to be that, I think it would be quite an outlay for a manager. And as Billy said, just as he popped off and popped back on, you want somebody that's going to be here for the long term. So is it seen as an investment? I think that would be my question. Do you think if it was to be true about the contract rumours, do you think it's being looked at as an investment for long-term stability and success?
I just want to come in and win, to be honest with you. I mean, I think there's a lot of talk about, see if he comes in and wins you a couple of league titles and a couple of trophies, and then Brentford want to take him. That's fine. That's where you then operate like a real football club, and you do actually have succession planning. And succession planning should be a thing, whether you're winning or whether you're not winning. It's part of any sound organisation, football club, whatever you want to call it. I don't think Steven Gerrard would have been on £60,000 a week, to be perfectly honest with you. I've seen the links, the contract, all that sort of stuff. So I'll take that one with a pinch of salt. He'll be coming for decent money, but it's not a great concern. See, to be honest, if the owners, if that's what they deem the right thing to do, great. You just want to see a Rangers team on the park that you can identify with, and you can win games of football and be competitive in all the competitions. That's all Kevin Muscat has to do. Neil McCann, I hope, with that local knowledge, will be able to say, this is what has been going wrong. This is what we need to fix. It's no rocket science, Scottish football. Don't overcomplicate it. And I think that we talk about systems, and I've said this with Russell Martin, there's a fixation with modern football and systems and stuff like that. It's Scotland. It's not as complicated as it needs to be. Move the ball quickly, get the ball wide, get the ball in the box, create chances, score goals, and in your own half, defend properly. That's very simplistic from me, to be honest with you, but that is essentially what will make Rangers competitive moving forward.
I'll come back in, Bob, and come to you on the. I don't know if you'll have touched on it. I was only away a wee minute there. So the implication of him staying with his club or coming to us, his season's got another 4 games left. I don't know what the current score is. It was 3-2 last time I seen. I think he could come earlier if he wins the next 2 games. Mitch said something on the pod last night, which I just like. Right, he's obviously not going to come to his season's over. And then he said, well, this is business. You don't buy someone out of a contract and then wait for them to, finish in another couple of months' time. I agree with Mitch. I think if he is going to come, he needs to come right now. We can't be having 8 weeks of Neil McCann trying to put into place what he thinks, or, how much contact he's going to have with Muscat. And how much information is he going to be training 2 teams at the same time? It's not really on. You can, you can't serve for 2 masters, as the old phrase goes. If he's going to come for me, he needs to come just now. What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, Billy. I've certainly seen it being discussed amongst ourselves and other pods. But again, I think there's the debate that I've seen is is it the character of the man to show that he's loyal to a club in terms of seeing out his remaining games. I think it's like 4 games that he's got. That may be less depending on how his team performs if other teams drop points. To win the league in China. They're also in the Asia Champions League. So again, that may delay things further. But yeah, again, I think as any Rangers fan would probably say, if we're going to go and get him and there's a deal agreed, go and pay the money and just take him. I know it sounds simple, as you said, but just go and take him, because you've got, again, from our side, and as kind of Cammy touched on, you've got the 2 sides of the coin of, if Neil McCann comes in as interim coach until Muscat arrives physically, there's a lot of pressure on McCann to perform well, so that when Muscat comes in, there's a kind of seamless transition. Because if McCann, if he does come in, doesn't get the results in those early games, the feeling that we've currently got is only going to be amplified and further frustrated that we're still not winning, we're still not being successful, which is what we want to see which again, Cammy, bangs the drum on nearly every week, which is sad to say, but it's the truth. We all want to see a winning Rangers team on the park. But yeah, so that there's that two sides of the coin of if Stevie Smith is only got one game in charge, we want to see him win at the weekend regardless. If Neil McCann is then appointed as interim coach until Kevin Muscat comes in, the pressure's on McCann to perform so that he's kind of setting Muscat up to have an easier integration into the managerial role. Because if he doesn't and it gets to the end of November, when I think it's scheduled, that if everything does go to the wire, is probably the earliest, the latest they could come, earliest they could come, depending on how you look at it. And we're out of the League Cup semi-final. We're out of, we're essentially out of Europe, because if we don't win this coming week, 3 defeats in the first 3 games isn't looking great, and potentially faltering in the league. The pressure's really ramped up on Muscat if he comes in at the end of November, and you've then got a month till January, potentially then to bring signings in. Scottish Cup starts, then it's always, he's kind of chasing his tail from the moment he arrives.
Cammy, it's very much in keeping with this board and this structure to bring in somebody that can't start for 8 weeks. But think of so in their best case scenario world, from what we're led to believe, Neil McCann takes over. Neil McCann starts winning games. In 8 weeks' time, we've won pretty much all the games, and then Kevin Muscat comes in, and then he starts winning the games as well. That's what they really need to happen. But there's two other things can happen there. Neil McCann could lose everything or not win enough games, leaving us, the league's over, we're out the cup, we're pretty much out of Europe, we've got the Scottish Cup to play for, but that's it. And then Muscat starts winning and things look good, but we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot. The other permutation is that he comes in, Neil McCann does do well, he comes in and doesn't do well, and then the fans start screaming to bring Neil McCann back in. So I don't think they can allow a long period of time to go with Neil McCann. We're left in this position where Stevie Smith's an interim to an interim. It's very in keeping with this board.
No, I totally agree with you. I think there's so many permutations with regard to it. My situation is that he finishes with Shanghai Port in this game, and then he's over Monday, Tuesday. That's the ideal situation for me. I just think there's too many risks with regard to what it could go one of 2 ways. You could go on a run of games between now and the 25th of November. Great, you're in a cup final, you're back in the mix with regard to the league, you win a couple of Europa League games, but equally it can go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's looking, the sort of mood music that's coming out appears to be that we're going to have to wait until the conclusion of his time with Shanghai Port, but we just have to wait and see what the next couple of days bring. But Stevie Smith in his press this morning, I thought, spoke it was like having a conversation with me. Rangers just need to win games of football of a similar age, similar vintage, all that sort of stuff. But I think we just have to win. But the people that are making the decisions need to be clear with regard to what's been going on and what the way forward is going to look like, because the lack of communication and leadership from Rangers as a club over the last 2 weeks has been embarrassing, to be honest.
Bob, let's talk about Stevie Smith then to kind of tie things up. Russell Martin played very open at the back, as Ryan and our pod would say, had the fairway for teams to just plant balls into. What do you see Stevie Smith implementing this week? I know Jack had spoken to him after the under-19s game a couple of weeks back, spoke very well to us. Little did we know he was going to be the Rangers manager in a couple of weeks' time. But what do you think he changes about the setup tomorrow?
I think I'm going to say he's probably going to take it back to basics. I managed to catch the press conference from earlier today, which again he spoke well. He was very diplomatic in his answers, especially the interest that there's been around the club in the last 2 weeks with everything that's been going on. Yeah, I think he he said in his press conference he doesn't want to overload the players with information. He just wants to, he's confident in his own coaching ability. He's been doing it for the last kind of 10 years, 10, 12 years since he stopped playing, which again, you think to yourself, if he's doing it at the under-19s and he's kind of getting, a good number of results with them, it doesn't really matter if it's under-19s or the men's first team. It should kind of work across the board. So I don't think he'll overload them. I think he will obviously make certain changes. He'll maybe take people out the firing line. He might put people in that are feeling confident or have come back from international break on some form. So yeah, I don't think he'll reinvent the wheel, Billy. I think it's really just getting the result first and foremost, and then hopefully we start to see the bones of a style of play and a good performance from the team, which would then hopefully build into the positivity of a new managerial announcement coming hopefully at the start of next week, if not sooner.
Cammy, hopefully Russell Martin wasn't able to implement his style of play all down the teams and the women's team, the under-19s, the young boys as well. So they don't have... so Stevie Stiff will have his own thoughts on how the team should set up that's not similar to Russell Martin. So what do you think he needs to do? Bob talked about taking players out the firing line. Anybody that jumps out as someone that needs taken out the firing line for you?
I don't think a great deal will change. It's how you play. It's you play on the front foot. You don't overpass in the wrong areas. You get the ball forward, you get the ball wide, sort of thing. 4-4-2 loyal. Yes, it'd be nice to see two strikers on the part, to be honest with you. But I don't think he'll have had the opportunity to work on very much different because of the international break. A lot of players wouldn't have came back until probably the last couple of days. So I think it'll be very... I'm not saying he'll play it safe, but I don't think he's going to, as Bob says, I don't think he'll reinvent the wheel. I don't see a huge number of changes. I think Diamandi's, I think he picked up an injury at Falkirk. I think he hobbled about for a good 10, 15 minutes, but couldn't be subbed if memory serves me. So I think you'll be looking at similar personnel, barring Raskin and one other. I hope the two wide players, Gassama and Ant-Man, I just want two wide players to run at their fullback and get crosses in. You saw what happened when you fed Majowski. If you feed Majowski the right way, he will score goals. But if you feed him on scraps like he's operated across the last couple of months, then he'll continue to struggle and continue not to look as positive. But I think one of the comments spoke about Stevie Smith, just echoing what I had said. Very, very straight down the line, very open, very honest, no waffle, no buzzwords. Just what you want from a Rangers manager, whether it's Stevie Smith in charge for 5 minutes or whether it's Kevin Muscat in charge for 5 years. I just want a Rangers manager. We all just want Rangers managers just to be... Don't try to tell us something different to what we're actually watching. Just be honest with us and don't try to gaslight us. Curtis, I see mentioned. I think I'd be surprised. He's not had a lot of minutes. Cameron's coming back after injury. But these guys will definitely would play part for me moving forward. 3-5-2. I see a comment. I just don't think he's going to have the time to have worked on that in the training ground. We took so many players away international duty, but we'll just have to. I really hope we can get the win for Stevie Smith, to be honest, and the win for us all.
Cam, if I stay with you, if you remember last season before, Stephen Davis had to take over for a game or two. Stephen Davis kind of commanded respect from the other players that were there. He had a lot of respect, but Stevie Smith to me doesn't seem to have that same stature with the club. Is there a worry that the players don't even listen to him when it comes to the setup tomorrow?
The players have to be professional. You know, the players are paid, very well paid by Rangers. You know, so the much fabled leadership group. This is where the leadership group has to help Stevie Smith. To be honest with you, they have to be on board with what the messages he's trying to get on board. It can't be fun for the players no enjoying going out on the pitch, and it's clear that they have the body language and everything over the last couple of months. Nico spoke about it during the week. He needs to feel the love of the manager, and I'm not saying Stevie Smith's going to rub his belly, but I'm sure Stevie Smith and Nico, he'll want to get the best Nico Raskin that we haven't seen very much of this season, to be honest. But I don't think that that's a concern. I do accept what you're saying. He doesn't hold the same international footballer gravitas, but he's been about the club. He knows what Rangers is about, and I think he'll speak. But the people, the Butlins, the Souters, the Taverniers, all these guys, they've got a responsibility as well to help and support Stevie Smith to get the right result tomorrow.
Right, guys, we'll finish up shortly. I'll come back to you for one last question in a wee second, but let me just mention our sponsor, the Bluebells Pub in Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote. So if you're over in Lanzarote, please go to the Bluebells Pub, Rangers Pub. They'll look after you there. I believe there's even a special drink named after Rangers Journal. If it's not going, it's not out just now, it's in the works. But if you're over there, please check in there for a game. Please check in there for a drink. And we thank them very much for sponsoring. If you are watching and you like what you see, but you've not subscribed, please do subscribe to us over on YouTube. It helps the channel an awful lot, especially on the financial side of things. So please do that over there. And I guess if you press the button to get notifications turned on, you'll see when we go live. Bob, last word on it. If it does turn out to be Muscat, are you happy with that?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to go with Muscat. I think he's the one that's obviously been in and around the job for the last couple of years. Obviously close before Clement got it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing his style of play, hopefully when he comes in and not if.
And Cammy, yourself?
Yeah, I wish him well. I think he's not going to come in with a magic wand, but Rangers should be performing far better than we've seen so far this season, as much as there is doubts over certain players' recruitment, all that sort of stuff. We just need to strip it back, start winning the game. The next 2 weekends, we've got 2 home games. Get 6 points on the board, and build from there. But I wish Kevin Muscat, Neil McCann, whoever else he has as part of his team, but Kevin Muscat in situ sooner rather than later would be my preference.
No worries, guys. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for your comments, and remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. We'll see you again soon.